So a great way to make things go away is just not talk about them, but that's no fun. Let's talk about all the craziness that happened in politics this past week on
The New England Take.
The New England Take on WKXL, NHTalkRadio.com. See what they got going on there. They pick up the show 8:30 a.m. Saturday mornings. And TheGraniteRock.com also shares out the show every Saturday evening. Big thank you to both those outlets, huge supporters of what they're doing. And you can check out more of the show at NewEnglandTake.com. We have a Substack feed there if you want to receive the episodes via email. Or obviously like and subscribe if you're checking us out on YouTube. Joined once again by Dexter Tarbox, contributor here. Welcome back.
Hi, AJ. Great to be with you again.
All right, so we are recording this on Wednesday, the 5th of November. I might release it tonight if time allows. We shall see, because the elections have just taken place yesterday, and there's all sorts of fun results. Later on in the episode, we are going to talk about the Nick Fuentes Tucker interview, which was a thing to behold and made many people very butthurt, and we will talk about that later. But for the first half, let's start with the local. We do broadcast on WKXL in Manchester. It's definitely worth talking about the elections that happened there, because they're very unique. So when you think New Hampshire cities, you always think just hardcore liberal Democrat period across the board. Well, we proceed to see Mayor Rouet re-elected for a second term, which I'm honestly excited about, especially with the fact because she replaced previously Joyce Craig, who was a progressive nightmare. But I'm not terribly surprised to see him continue on, judging by the success he's had the last year. I mean, what's your take on Rouet?
Well, I guess I'm not surprised to see that, for instance, he was reelected, but the school board was totally swept by the Democrats. The Board of Aldermen, I think, there were some Democrat pickups as well. There is a bit of schizophrenia in Manchester politics, evidenced also by what you just pointed out, that Rouet's predecessor was Joyce Craig, who could not be more different from him. So while it's an interesting result, it's not one that totally shocks me. And I'd have to say, even more broadly, with all the elections we just saw, it's not baffling how the Democrats swept so completely as they did. Because even some of the highest profile races were still local off-year elections, and we're in the 11th month of this Republican supermajority nationally that really does absorb all the political oxygen. So I wouldn't say that there were any surprises locally.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. So I've had former, or soon-to-be former, Alderman at Large, Joe Kelly Lavasser on the show a few weeks ago, talk about the Pickle Man situation. Be sure to check out that episode. And just Google Pickle Man. I'm sure he's going to show up all over the place. It used to be Rick and Morty. Before that, it was Family Guy. Now we got this Maori dude over in Manchester that's eating up all the SEO when it comes to pickles. It's a weird time. But Joe Kelly's out. I wasn't, and with him, Will Infantine. The two of them are kind of like hand in hand. They have a community access TV show down in Manchester where they talk about the news of the week and their opinions and everything. So Joe Kelly kind of eats up all the oxygen, in my opinion. And he's highly entertaining, but it doesn't play well when you're in a purple city and you want to have this very boisterous, loud behavior when it comes to your online presence, the way you act at city hearings and things of that nature. He's a smart dude. I'm not calling him dumb or anything of that nature, but it's just that mentality just doesn't work well when you're already kind of on the line of being able to continue to be in office. Once again, with this city that was formerly very blue is very much purple now with this kind of middle of the road. Like Rouet is good playing both sides. He's good at getting the Democrats to come to the table, which is important when you're in a purple city. We need to celebrate and, in my opinion, encourage more blue cities to get purple and have some Republicans in the mix, because if you go full bore to the leftist crazy, you get all the consequences of that, which you see in cities like Dover and things like that. And some of the nonsense here in my town of Concord here also, obviously, of late. But sorry, Joe Kelly, like it's great. I loved having you there. I love having you at the table, but I don't see how you thought this was going to work.
I mean, I think he's a lot of fun too, but you got to remember he also did just lose when he attempted a run for national office. I think he lost in the primary. I voted
Yep.
for him. But yeah, so again, not a surprise here. And also, if I remember right, in Manchester, didn't he just recently lose prior to this election his committee seat?
Yeah, he was the chair.
Aside from Picklegate, the political wins for him were not necessarily blowing in an advantageous direction.
Yeah. So, we'll have to continue to follow Manchester. I mean, if you think it, so the issue is when you already have the incumbent being someone of that personality, you kind of got to go with the flow with it as a fellow Republican voter. You got to kind of wait till the next cycle. He gets out. Either he changes his behavior if he wants to run again for this position, or we get some people in there that maybe could play nice in the pool as Rouet definitely does, as opposed to old Joe Kelly. Definitely continue to check out his show. It is entertaining what he's got going on online. So, but yeah, any closing thoughts on Manchester?
Well, I would just say, almost in connection to some of the more higher profile elections that we just saw yesterday as well, it is possible for kooks to do well, even in major elections. You do think about New York, for instance, and it isn't hard to see how a candidate like Mamdani, a wild kind of candidate in that mold, though obviously on the different side, would win even if this wasn't an off year or things weren't going his way. I mean, the New Yorkers in this case had their pick of three real crazies. They've got this communist chameleon, they've got this egoist in a beret, and then the accused groper who killed Granny. While sane people probably should have chosen the groper, the field certainly wasn't an embarrassment of riches. So there's a world out there where these types of candidates can succeed, and you could see in that case how it happens.
And I think the Babylon Bee had the best headline, as they are so good at doing sometimes. Say what you do about Seth Dillon. We'll talk about Seth Dillon later in the episode, but got problems there. But when it comes to the Bee in general, Zohran Mamdani horrified discovering he now has a job. 10 out of 10. So it's like this is a socialist rich guy. This is the peak of when you say the rich socialists that want to take over our cities. Here he is, and you just voted him in, New York City, and now we get to see what fallout comes from it. And I was talking to someone earlier about this whole situation. He's like, could you imagine being a Staten Island Republican right now, and how quickly they are looking on Zillow to see what is in Jersey or Pennsylvania or somewhere else that they'll be able to commute in via train or something of that nature into the city, as opposed to continuing to live this nightmare that is New York politics, because he's good. He is good when it comes to organizing. His people are great at what they're doing. I despise everything about his ideology, but the movements that he has built and the way he was able to play the game and get the general populace of middle class voters that live in New York that are millennials and Zoomers to back him is incredible, especially when you're considering the majority of what he was pushing for was around housing, which is totally understandable. Housing is a nightmare when you look at it. Unfortunately, he does not address the issue. He beats around, just goes into left field to say, this is the issue. The issue is the cost. No, the issue is not the cost. The issue is the economics of housing in that city. Just as we talk about with the whole issues around healthcare, it definitely equates in the same way. We're focusing on the cost of insurance, but we're not focusing on the cost of what the insurance is paying for. No, you're focusing on the cost of the rent as opposed to why the rent is skyrocketing, and how when you have non-free market solutions in there like rent control devastates an economy. It's already happened, and he wants to dig the hole deeper. I don't understand. Does it just come down to people don't understand economics? Are we just this bad at teaching our young people and how the free market works and why it's the best system?
Well, George Will has suggested on a few occasions recently, kind of along the lines of what you said, that maybe New Yorkers should get what they paid for with this, and then experience firsthand how implementing those policies is going to fail and harm their lives. Sort of let the kids stick the fork in the electrical outlet and learn a hard lesson. I don't think I go necessarily that far, because as you also said, there is about 47% of people in that city who do not want to be living under the leadership of a foreign communist, and now either have to or have to move. So they are going to learn a hard lesson, though I don't necessarily feel as sort of sanguine about, now you'll learn. On the one hand, for one, because again, they're sort of people who will innocently suffer in this, but also because I don't think that they will learn.
Yeah. I don't think they'll learn either. I think they'll just destroy the market. And I really got to say before I forget that, and as that market fails, we're just going to repeat what happened after COVID, where we had this tremendous influx of these blue staters start entering northern New England, destroying our housing market, entering Texas, fleeing California, doing just incredible changes to their whole way of life down there. It is New Englanders need to pay attention to what's happening in these big cities, because the impact that they have on the greater economy obviously is one thing, but just let alone the movement of people in this country is tremendous.
I don't know if you've seen it or how you feel about it, but Kelly Ayotte today running the sort of roving digital billboard around Midtown Manhattan, encouraging people to move up here to New Hampshire.
No!
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if she's necessarily thought that one through as extensively as she ought to have.
I thought she got rid of Taylor Caswell partly because of that. Because that was his whole mission, and that's becoming less and less popular. Yeah, the ski industry loves it, but we just want them to magically teleport from down in the Manchester toll booths up to Waterville Valley or wherever it is they got to go. We don't want them anywhere in between, but guess what? They will proceed to go that way.
There are some members of the state government in Florida as well, who have done a similar outreach campaign, and there's been a lot of pushback. Yeah, exactly for that reason. I know James Fishback down in Florida has been responding very strongly, saying, please ignore our state government's messaging on this. We absolutely do not wish to import you, whether or not you're a refugee from the sort of political failings of New York or not. Don't bring it to Florida, however neutral you may be. If you're a New Yorker, it's not something we're keen on importing.
Yeah, definitely not. And it's not something inherently evil that it gets villainized that people have these opinions that we have on this. It's not, we don't think they're trying to destroy anything. It's just they look at the world differently.
Well, they're stupid, yeah.
They're dumb. But also, they look at the world differently. I agree, but that's beside the point.
And I mean, talk about dumb when you're looking at voting choices. This is out of, because again, I'm not, aside from little issues like this that bleed over to us, I'm not really weeping over who runs New Jersey or Virginia or New York. But one that I think that is, from yesterday, manifestly more concerning is the election of Jay Jones to be the Attorney General in Virginia. Because I think, as everyone listening to this probably now knows, this is a guy who unrepentantly fantasized about murdering his political opponent and his children. And the delusional voters in Virginia, being fully aware of this, having read the messages, have raised this man to the position of the highest law enforcement officer in the state. And of course, look, people ought to be able to say whatever they want. But if the voters now are so partisan that they refuse to impose any kind of political consequences on that type of egregious, murderous behavior, that I think is really gravely serious. And to me, it's almost more interesting than New Yorkers being stupid. There's something more sinister which that seems to suggest.
And it kind of gives a good transition over into the Fuentes interview on Tucker, in my opinion. Another example of that crazy rhetoric went viral this past week was Jennifer Welch, who's a podcaster that no one knew jack about it unless you were in super liberal, rich circles. But it's like the same thing. Like, Democrats need to get used to celebrating violence because that's what we need to do. And like, do you realize this is how you get idiots like Fuentes popular? Because you get the crazy who have the most extreme things to say in response, and you continue to destroy the Overton window. Like, in the first Trump election, I'm going on tangents. Sorry, this is a crazy episode. There's a lot of crazy when it comes to these topics. Like, you look at the craziness with the rhetoric that happened with the Trump first election in 2016. That was the fight. He's just destroying the Overton window. He's making it so we can't talk to the other side and things of that nature. And it didn't play out that way. Ultimately, it was just used against Trump, in my opinion, that way. Because ultimately, he's fine getting Democrats in there as long as they're going to kiss his butt, ultimately. Whether it's good or bad is beside the point. But he's fine with working people from both sides of the aisle as long as you make him feel good about himself. When you continue to say, hey, I don't like you and I don't want anything to do with you and I'm going to blacklist you, you're giving the Streisand effect to the craziest of crazy in our commentariat in this country. And that's how you end up with a Nick Fuentes. So Nick Fuentes, for those of you who don't know, I'm hoping most of you don't know who this guy is, especially if you're tuning in on WKXL and maybe some of the social media people that check me out on LinkedIn and such. I hope you know nothing about Nick Fuentes aside from the headlines of late. Like, the guy's literally an anti-Semite. He's an would you consider him ethno-nationalist? I think he ultimately is ethno-nationalist when it comes down to it.
I think he's a provocateur, but yeah, definitely if you were to put him in and in that way, his views seem to fluctuate. But yeah, if you're going to put him in a bucket, that's probably the one you would drop him in.
But drop him hard. Yeah, he's a pro at saying the crazy thing in a way that gets attention and gets the online streaming political community just all up in arms and all having hissy fits, when we just shouldn't care about what this guy says. But when you continue to raise this guy up, this is what the Trump shooter believed in. He was a groiper, which is the name of Fuentes' movement, or groipers, and you just create this movement, and it's disturbing. We saw this once again going to 2016 with Richard Spencer getting escalated over and over again, and he was on CNN. Everyone's freaking out about Tucker talking Fuentes. CNN had Richard Spencer, who is a literal neo-Nazi, on cable television, and we're just going to forget about it. All the times David Duke over the last 30 years was platformed, and they're gone now because ultimately they're Democrats when it comes down to their politics. They're ethno-nationalists, but are also Democrats when it comes to public policy and how they want things to develop. Fuentes doesn't have that. He is in it for himself. He plays the part of someone who's conservative because of his religious beliefs, but when it comes down to it, he's got some bonkers ideas, and so Tucker Carlson had him on his show. I don't know if you want to take it from here a little bit.
Well, you know, I think that there is plenty of room, having unfortunately had to watch at least most of that at your request in preparation for this. You know, there's plenty that you can criticize Tucker for in the way that he did the interview. There were things or instances where he definitely could have asked Fuentes some sort of more incisive questions, pressed him on things like Fuentes self-describing himself as a devotee of Stalin, which never came back again. That was a new one. But on the other hand, and kind of to your point, I do think it's really foolish to attack Tucker for platforming Fuentes, because who cares but the people who already care? This is such a niche concern, which is being given just far too much importance. You know, the conversation that's had between two unelected podcasters is an exercise in free speech, which has an easy remedy. Don't watch it. These are not policymakers.
Jerry Springer used to do this stuff weekly, and we're just like, whoosh, well, we forgot about that.
Yeah, wasn't David Duke like a serious contender for Senate or something at one point as well, too? I mean, Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes are not policymakers or candidates or even serious contenders for that type of role where they would have actual influence over the society. They're not even on cable. You know, and the idea that the conservative movement, as some people are putting it, is now going to endorse pogroms based on the suggestion of some little twerp, you know, broadcasting from mommy's house is just a ludicrous suggestion. It's a podcast.
Yeah, totally. And the line, so you'll find the meme online. It's everywhere. Tucker saying, "I'm sorry for calling you gay," is so priceless. and then Fuentes essentially and then Tucker asks, like, "So is the problem with men or women?" And Fuentes, without flinching, "Problem is women." He goes on a tirade.
He said it in a very masculine way.
So
too.
hilarious.
He didn't do much to dispel the accusations.
What? People should watch this for the crazy show that it is. Just like when you have any other, it comes down to a lot of everyone takes everything so serious. This has been an issue since Obama, where people on the right, I shouldn't say conservatives, just people on the right, libertarians, conservatives, anyone like that, has said, stop looking at the world so serious. We are literally going to platform a clown with Donald Trump as our president because we're sick of your over-serious nonsense. And I literally was calling that out. It's constant because I said the same thing on Facebook because someone was having a hissy fit over Trump posting the AI video of him flying a jet and dropping feces across protesters. Yeah. And people were like, "Can you believe it?" I'm like, guys, do you pay attention to what your people are posting out there and we're supposed to take it seriously? Do you see the signs that are getting shown around at all the countless protests of no kings and everything else that's been going on? You guys don't take it seriously either, but you put on this facade of it anytime the other side doesn't take you seriously. Because ultimately, there's so many things on the right us refuse to take the left seriously about. So many things because it's either hypocrisy, you don't really understand what you're saying, or you don't care about the consequences because you need to be right.
I mean, you know, at some of these No Kings protests, there was that, you know, horrible heifer woman who is a public school teacher pantomiming a shot in the neck. You know, no one's marching on Washington over this idiot. You know, she was disgusting. She's a fool. She's been exposed for it. It's not an important matter of public policy that someone was being stupid. It's just something to acknowledge. Yeah. And this faux seriousness on the left when their own behaviors are at that level. To me, I would say is laughable, if but for the fact that, to our earlier point, they did just elect Jay Jones, who by his own account, would happily shoot children. Yeah. Because their parents have opposite political views. So if anyone needs to be taken seriously about some of this rhetoric, I don't think it's Fuentes.
Yeah, and something that really hit home for me with a lot of the conservatives having a fit about Tucker talking to Fuentes is one of my reflections. I actually talked to you about it right after we spoke to Jeremy Kauffman several months ago, a year ago, something like that. And he's posted some vile things when it comes to race. He's a race realist. He's all about the Jewish question, all these things. It's not the center point of what he talks about for the most part anymore. He tries to keep it to the libertarian side to promote his movement and just posting on things all the time. He goes back and forth when he decides to focus on that stuff. But something I kind of hated myself a little bit for not diving into, but I'm like, we got to have discussions with these people, and we can't always hit them on every little thing. I mean, Tucker did talk to Fuentes for 2 straight hours. He definitely should have pushed back, but that was not the purpose of his interview. His purpose, ultimately, in my opinion, was to show the failings of the conservative movement, to make sure that they're not just cutting ties and blacklisting people as opposed to pushing people to go in a direction that's actually productive. And that was something, I mean, that they did it with Charlie Kirk. They helped him. They helped him the whole way, and they guided him in the right way, and he started to have some issues later on when it came to the Israel situation, because across the board, Israel is a hot-button issue, and there's a lot less consensus when it comes to that on the right now. But to all the craziness about the Daily Wire blacklisting him before he started having all this crazy stuff get out there, was nuts. Like they knew they had a guy that was going to be this. They knew Fuentes was going to be a key player, and the Ben Shapiro machine tried to just step on him and get him out of the way. And what did they do? They enabled the worst tendencies of this little psychopath.
Well, and when we had Kaufman on the show, at the time, he was endorsing Trump pretty vocally. And we asked him about 2 years earlier when he was walking around with a sign calling Trump a socialist and the MAGA movement socialist. And he, as I recall at least, pretty much answered, I think truthfully, that it was to be provocative. And that's really what he does, Kaufman, with a lot of what he says. And I think that's a very good parallel to Fuentes. I don't know how many of Fuentes' views are firmly held beliefs, just as I don't know what percentage of Kaufman's views are actually firmly held beliefs, and what is said purely to get the kind of attention that he's receiving now. I think there's a good deal of that.
Yeah, and we need to stop this. I will say, okay, this is so we have 4 minutes left. I want to talk about this briefly. So, gatekeeping should happen. I will say that if we should say, hey, that guy is not a conservative. He is not of the right. This person does not believe the same things. That's one thing that the libertarian movement has a real issue with because of the nature of the movement, where they do a terrible job of separating out the Mises Caucus crew, which are legitimate financial conservatives like Dave Smith and such, versus the Reason crew, which are they're leftists when it comes down to it. How they feel about social policy is very different from the conservative libertarians type. Especially, you check out the Granite Grok, you'll see all sorts of conservative libertarian types on there that take things far beyond how I feel. Gatekeeping is okay, but when we're such an extreme gatekeeping where we can't have people talking within the movement, it's not going to help. It's utterly toxic. I shared a video to you of Brett Cooper talking about this, of her supporting Matt Walsh, saying, hey guys, the right needs to actually come together now. Like, if we honestly want to keep this movement going, yeah, there's some idiots over here on our side. We got to kind of just deal with them a bit. We should say, hey, that's where they shouldn't have said that sometimes. Yeah, of course. But we can't just be saying, hey, we refuse to associate them in any which way, shape, or form. They're not allowed in our movement. So that doesn't help. We need to have this movement continue beyond Trump.
And yeah, there's certainly levels to it. I don't think that anyone is suggesting, at least seriously, that Fuentes speak at CPAC,
Right.
there's levels to this. Banning him off of every media of communication would be the wrong thing to do. Not inviting him to CPAC is the right thing, likely to do. I think there's broad consensus on that among serious people.
Yeah, and we need to just get this Israel situation sorted out and just no longer have that be the headlines, in my opinion. I think that is the center point. It was abortion previously. That got mostly sorted for now, but this Gaza war is just the cornerstone of continuing the toxic, we can't get along, and we have this just craziness in the dialogue where we can't focus on actually moving forward with the right-wing movement in this country.
Yeah, and it's an issue about which it's difficult, at least for myself, to have clear-cut opinions, for instance. So it muddies the water of sort of political discourse, and I think we need to be thinking a little more domestically, because it's almost too complex of an issue for us to sort of stake all of our ideological beliefs on and the future of the movement. It's just too muddy.
Yeah, you'd think we would have learned that lesson with Iraq and Afghanistan, but gotta love America. There's always something in the Middle East that could screw up our politics, and that we have here, and hopefully Trump will win his Nobel Peace Prize here this next year by ending that nightmare. We shall see, we shall see. Dexter Tarbox, contributor here at New England Take. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Where can people check you out?
Oh, I'm still on X, just under my name, and then here. Not writing as much recently, but hopefully getting back into to Granite Grok and a few of these other outlets in the near future.
That'd be great. All right, newenglandtake.com. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. Please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Check out the Substack at newenglandtake.com. If you have tips, you want to reach out to the show, AJ at newenglandtake.com, as well as ping me on social media. I'm always looking for different people to get on the show and for people to tell me I'm right or wrong, because it's always entertaining to get those emails. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the show. Saturdays, 8:30 a.m. Next up over there is Facing the Future, brought by the Concord Coalition, as well as thank you to thegrainofgrok.com for picking up the show. We'll talk to you soon.